I want you to see something here. She didn't just bake that loaf and give it to him, but when it didn't quit running out, she kept baking loaves and kept providing and kept taking care of the prophet. As a matter of fact, she made a room above her house so he could stay there and have a place to stay. And here's the wonderful thing it says in there. And I went and I looked at the wording, and to make sure I understand, it says, she was able to provide for the prophet, herself, and her family. Now, that wasn't just her son. That was the extended nature of her family. It was such a blessing that people began to show up at her house. She began to be the resource for her community. She began to be the resource for the whole family there. God did something so significant. She had a great story, a testimony. Let me tell you what I did. I took half of what I had, I sowed it to the prophet, and look, guys, we got food to eat. It changed her destiny. It changed her whole perspective. And God's just looking for you and I to take that little act of faith, that little step, that little trust that He speaks, and just say, I'm willing to do this, God. I'm willing. I know it doesn't look like much, but in your eyes, it's everything. Because here's the thing. When you put that act of faith out there, God has promised He will never let you go without. Whether it's a physical, spiritual, relational need in your life. He said, trust me first, and I'll provide for you. Now this lady, she's a pretty amazing lady, but she's flawed too. You're going, really? Well, that's not the end of her story. They're rocking along and having bread every day. And the little boy's with them. And one day the boy dies. Just dies. How do you know that's not good? Let's read what it says. In chapter 17, verses 17 through 24. And sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. I know that's a tragic circumstance. She said to Elijah, what do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? Now that's a statement made out of pain. Would you guess that she had some brokenness still left in her? Give me your son, Elijah replied. He took him from her arms, carried him up into the upper room where he was staying, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even to this widow I'm staying with by causing her son to die? Then he stretched himself on the boy 3 times and cried out to the Lord, Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. And Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. And he gave him to his mother and said, look, your son is alive. Then the woman said to Elijah, now I know that you are a man of God and that the word from your mouth is the truth. I just want to share with you this lady is as amazing as she had experienced a miracle. And sometimes we look at people's lives and lives of people who God has done amazing things in their life. And they get to a point of crisis and it looks as though they're just going to turn away from God. And you go, why would you do that? This lady, she was having a supernatural provision of resources. She was, every day when she woke up, her pot of flour and her pot of oil, it was full every day. Every day when she got up, God had done a supernatural miracle in her life. And then she comes to this point and she basically is like, what's wrong with you? And where's your God? And why'd you do this to me? And you'll go, and Elijah, I can just see him. His eyes are going. But I want you to see something. And this is real important because this is something I believe is, if anything else, God wants to share with some of you here today. You see, you notice what she said? Did this happen to point out my sin and cause my son to die? She was living a miraculous life riddled with guilt. Something in her life, something in her past, some maybe not even a truth, but something that the enemy of our souls had worked into the fabric of her being. She said, "This isn't going to last. This goodness that is happening in my life, it surely can't last." Because you see, God knows this, and He's going to punish me for this. This is going to happen. And sure enough, when her son died, she felt like it was her fault. It was because of her mistakes, her sin, her situation, because of what had ever happened, real or perceived. She felt like this situation, this tragedy, this situation in her life, it was her fault, and she was like, I'm mad because I know you've pointed out my brokenness, and I don't know what to do with it. Maybe you've been there. Here's the thing. What we need to understand is that the situations of our life are most often not the cause of our sin, but of the brokenness of our world. And God wants to show you that He loves you anyway. See, we carry around, we've had God do something amazing. Some of you have had an encounter with Christ and you had the wonderful awareness of His mercy and forgiveness. But as you walk along life and something happens, and this is the truth, there is always going to be something that happens in our life. Some situation's not going to work out. Your children are going to do something that breaks your heart. The circumstances of your life are going to become some way in which the situations are tragic or hard or problem. And here's the thing. We will almost always, unless we've experienced that fullness of grace in our life, we will always go back. What did I do to cause this? And we'll carry this deep-seated guilt. And what it does from us is it keeps us from moving forward in faith and believing that God wants to do something in our life. It robs us of our ability to move forward in what God created us to be. You see, God loved this woman. He had picked her out. She wasn't anything anybody would have chosen, but God chose her. He knew about her. He knew what was in her past. He knew what was in her life. He knew all about her. He knew all of her circumstance. And yet He chose to say, I want to do something significant in and through you. And He actually brought her to this point that it would confront the cancer of her soul. And when she realized it wasn't her sin that killed her son, it was just the sinfulness of this world, and that God loved her anyway and would do something for her in spite of that. Oh, I know there's some in this room today that think the reason why I'm going through what I'm going is because I messed up. And I want to just tell you, God wants to liberate you. He wants you to be free today. You see, He wants to pull that into His heart. And if I could just speak as the prophet, God, do something to heal this mother. It was less about the boy and more about the mother. Although it was great to get the boy back. I don't know where you are are this morning. I don't know what you're going through. One of the things I know about moms, almost every mother I've ever talked to that got honest with me, I screwed my kids up. It's just true. Because you see, that's what their passionate love for their children becomes a tool in the hand of our adversary who comes along inside and he begins to say to the mom, you messed them up, because they love them so much. And when they make choices or do things that are outside of what they know is best, they take it upon themselves, begin to blame themselves, begin to beat themselves up, begin to crush their own spirits. And here's what I want to bring to you. If I could speak from the heart of God, that's not from Him. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Your children make their own choices. Listen, I love my mom. I'm glad she's with Jesus. I really am. I miss her. But Lord knows I put her through the ringer. You know me with Jesus. She knew me without Him. And I wasn't nice all the time. And I would disappear and didn't tell her where I was. Literally, I would be halfway around the country and she wouldn't know where I was. Do you know what that did to my mother's heart? And I know there were days when she would get up, God, what did I do wrong? Why is my son in a place that I know I didn't teach him to go? Where did I mess up? But I'm here to tell you the reason why I'm standing here is because my mom said to me on a Sunday morning, Jack, you want to go to church? It was my mom. I want to just tell you, moms who are struggling and think you screwed it all up, God's still in the redeeming business. He still heals and He still restores. And your guilt isn't going to get Him any closer. Let Him have your guilt. Let Him have your pain. Let Him have that struggle that's in your heart. Let Him, because here's the deal. There's a miracle waiting to happen just for you. It's just out there for you. But you can't carry the burden anymore. It's time to give it to Him. Were there not a lot of widows in Israel? But the Lord said to Elijah, go to Zarephath. Do you know what Zarephath means? To be refined. A refining of metal. Go to Zarephath. I have a widow there. I have a widow there who's going to provide. That was a little bit about Elijah and a whole lot about the widow. This morning, I just want to challenge you, mom, dad, woman, child, young man. Don't let guilt rule your life. Be willing to risk and take a small act of faith, because God's got something amazing for you. Let God see something in you you don't even see in yourself. Because I promise you, it's there. It's there. And don't be surprised to realize He's already been working in your life. You just didn't know it.